Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 6 of Friday with Friends. I am so excited because this video is in partnership with Ivy's Women Asset Management Program, which I have been so envious of for many, many years. So I have two participants of the program. We have Isha and Naomi, and we also have the program manager, Rochelle, and she will speak about the logistics and the application for this year's cohort at the end. So stay tuned for that. Let's just start with the very first question I ask every single guest. Can you first share a bit about your upbringing, high school experience, and your career interests at the time?
Okay, hi everyone. My name's Aisha. Nice to meet everyone. Growing up, I would say I had come from an Indian family, so had immigrant parents. They worked really hard, so I would say I was always kind of a high achiever with high expectations for myself when I was growing up. Thankfully, they were really open with my career choices, so I never really had a defined career path that I was put into or knew that I wanted to do. Like I didn't know I wanted to be a doctor, a lawyer, or like teacher forever. But I was also a competitive swimmer for 6 years of my life. So I would say I was really attracted to like competitive environments, had a good work ethic. There's like a little poster of me right there. Um, and then I remember I randomly wanted to be a dentist, but I was kind of all over the place. I realized early on I didn't like sciences, but I enjoyed my accounting classes and was always strong at math. And I was pretty extroverted. I liked talking to people. So I thought that business would suit me. And my dad would drive me home from school. Sometimes I'd listen to his radio about how the NASDAQ was doing, and I'd ask him questions here and there. He also started his own business, so I was able to like see how that all worked. My school was pretty small. We didn't have a lot of clubs. And I remember starting my own stock market club with my friends. So I would say I always kind of had an interest for business, but I didn't really know much about it. Like I can promise you, I did not know what asset management or capital markets was or anything like that. But I just thought that it would suit my personality because I knew early on I didn't really like the engineering or science route. Always knew I wanted to kind of be in front of people and talking to people. So I thought that's why business would kind of be suited for me, but wasn't really defined, I would say.
Awesome. Yeah. And then my name's Naomi. I am from Calgary, Alberta. And yeah, kind of similar to Isha, I didn't really know that I wanted to do business for the majority of my high school experience. I was really into a sport called biathlon. It's a bit of like a niche sport, so I'll just explain it. It's cross country skiing and then rifle shooting. Which people always ask me how I got into that. It was just like something I was at like this kids camp and they just kind of threw us into trying to run around and shoot rifles. So I got into that and I did that competitively from ages 11 until 19. And so yeah, I was pretty heavily involved with that in high school. And honestly, like my goal was to go to the Olympics at the time. So I guess like school and like I guess like post-secondary school and my career wasn't really something that was top of mind because I thought that the Olympics was kind of what I wanted to do. And then I took a gap year and did biathlon competitively. I went to world championships in Austria and then came back and we had like a quarantine for 2 weeks because this is back when COVID was still a pretty significant thing. So I kind of like took a step back and I realized that I was at a point in my career where I either had to like commit 10 years to going to the Olympics and doing the whole biathlon thing. And I think or like just kind of pivot and go to school. And I think going to Worlds gave me a good insight into what the rest of my the next 10 years were going to look like, and I just decided that it was time to pivot. So yeah, then I chose Western, and yeah, I decided that it was just more up my alley, and I chose Western because I thought it was more of like it kind of aligned with similar to Isha as well. I think I have quite a lot of competitive spirit in me, and I think I like the idea of going to Western and then more specifically Ivy after. And then yeah, also similar, my dad's in finance. So I kind of grew up and my brother was also in finance. So I kind of grew up with that always around me. So it was always kind of in the back of my mind. Even when I was like, I'm going to the Olympics. But yeah, that's about it.
I love that. And I think there is a distinct pipeline with like athletes to capital markets. I guess it's the competitive nature, but you see it all the time. Looking on people's LinkedIn, they've played like, D1, this and that, and you see them in those competitive roles. So I love that theme here. Now, question number two, what led you to study business at Ivy? And maybe I know the first 2 years at Western, you have to do something else as well. So could you touch on what you decided to do?
Yeah, for sure. So I kind of started chatting about it a little bit before, but the reason that I chose Western, so I was originally going to go to Dalhousie. I kind of deferred it a year when I was doing my gap year, just to kind of like be like, don't worry, I'll go to school at some point for my parents. But so yeah, I did that. And then in my gap year, I was like, I heard about Ivy and Western a little bit more. So I was like, I have nothing else to do really except for train. So I'm going to apply and see if I get in. And I got into Western for Bachelor of Management and Organizational Studies, or BMOS is what it's commonly referred to, basically the business program at Western. And then I also got the advanced entry opportunity into Ivy. And I think it was just, I'd heard a lot of good things because a lot of my friends had gone there the year before me. Heard a lot of good things about the school. And then I think the fact that Ivy was also a very competitive thing. Like you still had those first 2 years of needing to maintain a high average and also be involved in other parts of the school. I think just fit really well with my personality. And yeah, that's what eventually led me to choose Ivy. But yeah, then I specialized in accounting in my second year at Western in BMOS, and then I just entered HBA1 or first year of Ivy.
As cringy as it sounds, I remember Ivy was kind of like my dream school. I think I was always like very interested in like researching universities and things. Like I remember I watched Wynette's cupcake video where you chose the different universities, and I was always like deep in Reddit, like researching different schools what I wanted to do. And honestly speaking, I remember me and my friend just wanted to go to Western because we saw everyone posting on homecoming and like Purple Fest and things like that. But I actually learned about Ivy when they came to my school for like a presentation. And I never really knew that schools had case-based learning. I found that that was really interesting, like a good challenge coming from like constantly doing lectures throughout my whole life. And then it just seemed like a good challenge and an interesting way to learn. And I love the doors that it could open and like where people kind of worked after it. And I remember visiting Western and Ivy before, and I applied to a lot of different places, but it's kind of cringy, but it felt like home, the Ivy school. And I always knew that I wanted to live on campus rather than like staying home and going to like the home schools like U of T, because I wanted to kind of be independent and get that full experience. Talked to a lot of people and they loved it. I could tell like there's something different about people who went to Ivy, like they were very confident in themselves and a little bit different. I was obviously very nervous to maintain the 80 average. So I did Bachelor of Management and Organizational Studies in my first 2 years, but was still very nervous to maintain that 80 average. But I remember at a career fair, someone told me to just bet on myself. So I took the risk because I knew I wanted to go to Ivy. And the first 2 years, I would say, were very stressful because we were in COVID and everything was online. But I was very focused on getting into Ivy. And now I can say that it was really worth it. I'm in my last year and I met some of my best friends and really felt like it developed me as a person. And aside from just the academics, I feel like Ivy really develops you as a person in terms of like your confidence and like your presentation skills. So I think it was a really good decision.
I love bet on yourself because I as well got AEO and I was super nervous about that 80. And I think that's ultimately what deterred me to go somewhere else. But if you were good enough to get in, like you are good enough to maintain. And, like I always think to myself, like, if not you, then who? Like you can do this. I think we always like support our friends and family, but why don't you support yourself? And I'm so happy that you both decided to go into Ivy Business School and maintain that 80. Now, this is going to be a bigger question. Could you briefly share your entire internship experience so far? Not just like the applications or like the internships that you've done, but did you struggle at all in first year? What were your thoughts entering internships in your first year? Did you know much about it?
Yeah, so honestly speaking, I remember my first year, I did not know anything about like recruiting. And now I feel like I've like kind of moved all past that. But I think about my first year self and I literally didn't know that you had to do everything so early. I remember like it was January and I'm like, okay, let me look at like what job I'll get this summer. And I'm like, okay, I'm really behind on this. Like I don't even know what to do. I remember feeling so behind and not being able to kind of get that corporate job at a bank. Like when some of my friends were working at CIBC and I just felt like so bad and was like comparing myself a lot. And it was obviously very hard during COVID as well. I was comparing myself to others, but I was able to get a job at a startup called Venture X. And I look back now and it was honestly really cool because working in a startup was you get a lot of responsibility. Like my last 2 years I've been in like bigger banks and like I look back and like I did a lot of stuff there. It was a really cool startup. It focused on like connecting startups with investors for funding. And I worked as a sales and marketing intern. So I kind of was in charge of editing videos, managing webinars and like the social media in the social media page that they had. I liked working directly with the CEO. Like that was really great. And I got to really strengthen my communication skills and being in front of people. But I knew that I still kind of wanted to be in finance. So that's when WAM came up to me. I thought that it was a really great opportunity. And I know we'll touch on that later. But with WAM, I got to work on in 1832 Scotiabank's asset management firm. And that was like my first, corporate world job, and like got to wear my suit, like go in every day, which was really exciting. I think that it was just really great to be amongst like so many people who've been working there for like 18 years. And Scotiabank was really great in letting us sit in on like some of those big boy meetings and like learn from them. And I think that that was a really great experience. But I would say that it was really intimidating like the first few weeks, and like how to even just conduct yourself. And I was put on the fixed income team, and I did not know a lot about that team. Like it's a very technical product to kind of be on. So I would say there was a huge learning curve with that internship, but I like the challenge, and like I liked learning about it. And I think that the fixed income asset class has been like really popular these last few years with like everything going on with inflation and interest rates. So it was really good. But my mentor used to kind of trade things when I was with him. And I remember like sitting with him, and he like let me punch in a little trade for him. So I was kind of curious on like how the other side of things worked. And I knew I wasn't like, I've never been someone where I'm like, okay, this is what I want to do like forever in my life. Like I still want to try out different things. So that's why when I would see like sales and trading internships posted, I thought that that would be like a cool thing to do after this, and kind of learn on like how these different things are traded. So I got the chance to work at RBC Capital Markets on their trading floor. I know Wynette worked there as well. And I got to be on the interest rate sales desk. And I would say that being on the trading floor was very intimidating at first. It's a whole different kind of job. Like it's not the regular, cubicle job. Like everyone's standing in their seats and like yelling back and forth, especially the bond desk, I would say. But it was a really great summer to be on that desk, I found, because there was a lot going on in the markets, and I got to learn a lot just by like sitting beside people and learning about what they did. And I got to be introduced to interest rate swaps, which was very scary at first, I would say too. But I learned a lot and kind of gained a lot of attention to detail, like that kind of skills. And like honestly, those two internships taught me how to succeed in high pressure environments, really develop thick skins. And my main goal going into it was kind of like understand economics and kind of be able to talk about it confidently. Like I know that's a lot what WAM talks about, is like women often feel like scared to kind of talk about those things confidently. And I think that that was my main goal. And now I was able to kind of come home and talk to my dad about where I thought interest rates were going. So yeah, that's kind of all my internship experience. Was confused at first and kind of got exposure to finance, but say it taught me a lot.
Yeah, I think everything that Aisha said is totally true and valid. And I think there's a lot to unpack when it comes like internship experiences, because I think there's a lot of like buzz around like, oh my gosh, you have to get an internship this summer. And like I remember in my first year, totally this like the same as Aisha, I was like not like I wasn't even think like it was my first year of university. Like I'm thinking about like my, I don't know, MOS 1022 exam I've got coming up, and I'm not thinking about where I'm going to be working like 8 months from now. So I think that was like there's so much stress and like pressure around it. I think especially for like first years. I managed to get I worked in wealth management internship in my first summer. And I think that there also is a lot of people who like to talk about all of like the things that they were able to do in their internships. But honestly, sometimes your first year internship isn't going to be like breathtaking. Like it's like going to be a lot of like little internship jobs that are like, I don't know, fixing the printer, and like all of those things are very true. So I think that a lot of people are intimidated. I don't know if there's any like future whammers who are listening to like this podcast. I hope there are a lot, but I think if there's any advice I can give is that like you also don't need to have like an internship in your first summer. Like you can have a lot of other experience that is probably honestly more valid than working in like a wealth management internship. Like there's a lot of people skills you can develop, like a lot of people skills, critical thinking skills you can develop like doing any kind of job. So I kind of like want to reiterate the fact that like don't feel pressure to get an internship in your first summer. Like there's so many other opportunities out there for you. So if you are trying to apply for WAM and you're like, oh my gosh, I have no internship experience, don't worry about it. Like you're probably got a lot of other stuff going on. But then, so yeah, worked in that. And yeah, I think it was a really good experience to like get myself into finance and like realize that there were some parts of it that I was interested in that kind of like encouraged me to want to eventually apply for women in asset management. So, and then my second internship was very different. It was actually like doing legit work, and it was like, it definitely felt like being thrown into the deep end a little bit. But I think that that was like like it's obviously intimidating for a lot to be thrown into the deep end, but you learn so much. And I had a really great boss and mentor who like acknowledged the fact that I was a second year student. I had like some background in asset management from obviously the month-long kind of crash course that we did with women in asset management. But yeah, it was definitely like being thrown in the deep end. It was like I was thrown on, I was doing equity research on the US small mid cap growth fund at McKinsey. And I remember like coming in like my first few days and they were like, okay, so you're going to be working in healthcare and like more specifically life science like tools. And I was like, okay, don't really know anything about healthcare. Also don't know anything about life science tools. So this is going to be interesting. This is going to be an interesting summer. And yeah, like the first like I would say like 4 weeks, they just wanted me to do research into like what like life science tools is like and like learn a lot of like the terms, which after you've already had to learn trillion finance terms, it's kind of hard to like also learn a bunch of weird healthcare terms. So I'd say the first like 4 weeks, month of like my internship was a lot of like frustrating, like what am I reading? Like I don't understand any of these reports. And then I started kind of I ended up looking at two companies this summer. So it was a bit different from what Aisha was doing. If she was doing like fixed income versus, which is, I think it's a lot more, from what I understand, it's a lot more like fast paced and you're always kind of looking at something new. What I was doing was like looking at like two companies, like probably like 4 weeks ish this summer. And yeah, I would say like general takeaway from an internship is like a lot of like frustrating, like learning a lot of new stuff and being like, I don't understand this. And then when like earnings would come out or something like I think a month and a half, like earnings came out for one of the companies that I was looking at. And I was like, oh my gosh, I understand all this. Like I get why this is happening. And like I understand like everything's kind of all coming together. And it was the most like satisfying feeling ever. And I think like that kind of ties back to like being an athlete. It's like working on like getting feedback on your technique and you're like not getting it and or getting like feedback on how to shoot better and have like be more focused and working on all these breathing techniques. You're like a lot of frustration in your off-season training and then going to like a race and like seeing like the tangible results. I would say that was like the most comparable thing. I think that's why I enjoyed my internship so much and why I'm going to go back this year and work there again, because it was just like it was kind of the exact same feeling that I kind of had from doing biathlon and being an athlete. So yeah, I think if I had any advice, because some people have been reaching out to me on if they should apply or not for WAM, and I was like, honestly, if you have any like reservations about it, even if you're not sure if asset management's for you, you take away like so much more from an internship, like being able to realize that, oh, I can wrap my head around what gene and cell therapy is, even though I like am not great at science. And like, but you teach yourself to like, I don't know, you teach yourself to take in a lot of information and figure out like what's important, which I think is so applicable in any like industry that you want to go into. And as Aisha said, like you develop your confidence and like public speaking skills and just like learning how to converse with people who are at a different point in their lives, but like know how to like transfer information to them in a good way. So yeah, I think that's like what are in my internships have been like in a nutshell, but biggest takeaway is like don't rush and don't feel intimidated if you don't have a lot of experience already.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up. I do a lot of resume reviews, and for those of you watching, maybe I've spoken to you and I've done your resume, and a lot of them are embarrassed to put down the retail or like camp counseling, swim instructing, lifeguard experience, and like I don't know, like I don't think they're gonna like this, but it's like okay, like let's say you worked at Baskin Robbins, for example, and on the summer months you're serving like upwards of 60 customers an hour, and it can get really stressful. Or you're at McDonald's and like you know your orders got to be out fast and they have to be like accurate. So I think like every job has a transferable skill. So if you weren't able or you weren't looking for that first year internship, it's entirely okay. I think as students, the most important thing is curiosity and coachability and interest. And Aisha and Naomi, I can tell you have it, and people shouldn't be intimidated. You know, that goes beyond the resume. It's really what's in here. So definitely apply, everybody. Now, question number 4. Could you tell us from start to finish, from discovery, application, interview, training, matching, all the way to the end of your internship, including timelines of your involvement in Ivy's Women in Asset Management program? If you can remember any details, we'd love to hear them.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously I was in the second cohort of Women in Asset Management. So my first introduction to it at all, I remember like looking on LinkedIn one day, and everybody had posted the like opening the Toronto Stock Exchange. And I was like, that is the coolest thing ever. Like, I need to do that. Like, I was so interested in it. And it was just being reposted everywhere. So it was just like every time I'd like forget about it, it'd be like immediately I'd see that like the next day. So I was like, it was always kind of in the back of my mind from, I guess, like July. I think they opened it late July. So onwards, it was always there. And then I remember a few girls also came into one of my business 2257 classes, which is a mandatory class you have to take in BMOS at Western. And I remember two girls came in and they were like the most to speak about the Women Asset Management program. And they're the most like well-spoken, like confident, like I was just like, oh my gosh, like everything they are, like they're just like emulating like success. I was like, that is so great. And they were only a year older than me. Like they had just finished the first like cohort, and I was like, I need to do that program. So I believe applications opened in November. And then at this point I was kind of like, I don't know, I had like a bit of a change of heart. I was like, I don't know if like I want to like do this summer. Like I don't know if I want to go back to Calgary, and like because I knew that most of the internships were in Toronto, Montreal, or Victoria. And I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to like take on the big city yet. Like, I don't know if I can do that just yet. So I was like, I didn't apply immediately. I was just kind of like a little bit more reserved. And then I remember it was on New Year's. My brother was like, I was in my house, and he was like, I was like, do you think I should apply for this like women in asset management thing? Like, I don't know. And he was like, why? Yeah. Like, why are you not applying for that? What do you mean? Like, apply for it and like, whatever, do whatever you want. If you get in and you don't want to do it, like, you don't have to do it. And I was like, okay, whatever, I guess. So I did it. And then I eventually got into the program. And then again, I was like, oh no. So I called my brother, and he's like, yeah, like stop calling me. Like, you do this. Like, I don't know why you're like thinking he's like taking any second thoughts about it, because he did the co-op program at Dalhousie, the commerce co-op program. So he was in Toronto for all of his like internships. And he was like, it's like genuinely, it's so eye-opening to be like in a city like that, because he eventually ended up moving back to Calgary. But he was like, it's so important to be there like while you're young, and like being like where like everything's kind of going on. So he was honestly like, yeah, a big factor in the reason why I'd like decided to do that, because he was just like, it's important to get to Toronto and just like kind of be in the epicenter of like not only like finance but just business. So yeah, then I ended up accepting the program. And I guess the first thing that we did was there was like a pre-program weekend. So we had 2 days of classes, which the classes were like pretty good, but I think the best part of it, like the biggest takeaway, was just being able to like see everybody and like get like kind of in like engaging with all the other girls who are doing women in asset management, because it is very scary. Like I didn't really know that many people doing it, and I think there's somebody that I was talking to about who's applying to the program this year. She's like, I'm just kind of like unsure. Like, I think they're all going to be like way ahead of me in finance, like know way more than I do. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly how I felt. But I think going into the pre-program weekend, I felt like that. And then like leaving it, it was completely different, because we'd all just kind of been like, oh my gosh, nobody else really knows that much about asset management. Like we're all kind of in the same boat. So it made it like it calmed me down a lot more before going into the program. And then May was, I think I kind of called just like an asset management boot camp. Like we were at Brescia. So we were staying at the Brescia residence, which is it's like a subset of Western University. And it's very close to Ivy. So we were all staying in residence together, and we all like moved in together, and we all had our little roommates. And it was honestly such a good way to do it, because we were always like, you were just like, it felt weird because I feel like I was literally just in women in asset management. Like I feel like I was like like siloed from the outside world. But it was great. Like we had like 5 days a week of classes, and then we'd have the weekends off. And the classes were like mornings were kind of like the hard skills. So we do like finance. We learned about like how to build a DCF, like weighted average cost of capital, all of like the skills that we needed going into our internships. And then the afternoons would be more of the soft skills. So it'd be like confidence classes or leadership classes. And then some days we would have like networking events after with the sponsors, which was, I think, the most valuable parts of the program for me were obviously the finance classes are important, and obviously like going to like the confidence building classes are important. But I think the biggest thing was definitely the networking part of it, because it's like you can learn about leadership and confidence as much as you want, but until you're actually like put into the situation where you have to like employ all those skills, you're not really gonna, I don't think you can't learn much until you do that. So those were really, really valuable. And it was also just like kind of getting to know, well, it was nice because it felt like it was like a safe space to be like, they all kind of knew that none of us had too much of a background in asset management. So it felt like we were pretty like free to inquire about what specifically they did in their positions at like the various organizations they were at. So yeah, and then we had 3 weeks of most of like just the morning and afternoon classes, and then the last week we had a capstone project that our cohort did it on Loblaw, which was also, I think, a very, very valuable part of the program, especially for me because we learned how to like build a DCF, and then we ended up presenting it to a couple executives at Loblaw. And that was exactly what I was doing all summer. I was building DCFs and then also like presenting it to the portfolio managers that I was working with. So I think that for me was like very, very valuable. We worked in like groups too. So it's just everything about that was like forcing us to put all of the skills that we'd been learning for the last couple of weeks actually into motion. And then we went to Toronto and did our presentation. And then we were all kind of like off into our internships. And yeah, I've kind of touched on the internship already a little bit. So yeah, I love my internship. I was very, very lucky to have been placed where I was placed. The matching process, I think, ended up working out well for me. I guess it was kind of a mix of, I can't remember exactly what it was like, but it was a mix of, I guess, personal like skills and also what you're interested in. And then Rachel and some of the other teachers, I think did end up doing the whole matching process, and yeah, worked out well. As for WAM in the summer, there was we still had a lot of events to do with WAM outside of our internships. So we had a lot of networking events with the various sponsors. I think there was like once a week or every few weeks we'd have them. And then obviously highlight for me, opening the stock exchange. I was there, I was doing it. I got the picture. It's on my LinkedIn. So that checked a box for me. And yeah, we've done like some like women in asset management socials since then. We went axe throwing this year. So like in September. So yeah, it truly is just like a little family, and I feel like it's like growing. Like I feel like the girls from last year have been so open and like excited to meet us. And it's obviously going to be the same for next year. And I think it's, yeah, that's the small take of a very, very big program that was, yeah, super great.
So I was in the first cohort. Steve, our professor, left to be like inaugural year, like make sure to say it's inaugural. And I would say my experience was very different from Naomi's. We were the ones who were posting all the stock market opens. Like it was literally all over everyone's feed. Like we were the ones who promoted it. But when we started and we heard about it, there was no promotion, no kind of background to go off of it. Like I remember it's so funny when I got my offer, I remember like calling Rachel and I'm like, so what companies are we working for? Like I literally had no idea what the program, and like me and my friend laugh about it now because I was like, this just sounds too good to be true. Like I'm like, I had nothing to go off of. Like, is this fake? Like, is this even real? Like it just sounded like too good to be true. But obviously for Naomi it was very different because she had something to go off of. But for us, yeah, like there was not a lot of information, not a lot of promotion. I remember like we got one email, I think in November, and I don't know if someone came into our class, but I remember just getting an email about it. And it honestly just felt so perfect for me because, as I mentioned before, like I didn't have any finance experience before. I was very late on the whole recruiting thing in first year, but I knew I wanted to kind of break into it and see how finance was for me. So I thought the program was important to me because kind of teaches you everything from down up, and like I didn't really know where to start, but I love that like they accepted people with no experience at all. So I thought that the program would be perfect for me. So I applied for it. The application process was for me two essays about our leadership and just any experience that you want and like how you showed experience in it, how you showed leadership in it, sorry, and upload our resume. And then there was this 1 minute video where we had to talk about why we wanted to join WAM and why we should be in WAM. And I wish I could show you guys how many retakes I took of that video because it was just 1 minute to show like how badly I wanted to be in this program and like why I wanted to be in it. It took so many retakes. I remember I took one like in my room and my dad's like, no, that's a bad background. Like go to a clear background video. And then I remember talking to like other people and they're like, oh, I wasn't that stressed. And I'm like, okay, I had way too much high expectations for myself, but like 1,000 retakes. It was so bad. But I would say the application process wasn't as intimidating, which was another great thing about WAM, because I think you find like in other jobs, it's like so hard to even get your resume like seen. You have to like network so much for it, but there's really no networking aspect of it. Like it's just really about your skills and like your leadership and really your passion. Like I think in your video, you're really able to show like if you even have just a curiosity in it, which I loved. And I think that was due in February. So I spent like, or sorry, the end of January. So I spent like my whole Christmas break kind of focused on that. And then I think we heard back in the first week of February. I remember screaming in my house and like being so happy that I got the offer. And then we got matched in about March, it would say. And I think just similar to Naomi, it was just a survey about like our personal interests and like what we see in a culture and what location we wanted to be placed in. And then in May is when we began. We had a whole fancy dinner to kick off. I would say one thing about WAM is they will spoil you. Like we got so much food and I gained so much weight at the end of it. Like we had three-course meals. Like I wasn't lucky like Naomi to be in Russia for 4 weeks. We only got the last 2 weeks. So you guys got everything much better, I would say. But that was like a highlight of it. It was so fun to live with like my friends, and like the people you'll meet are just so amazing because they're a great mix of like really social and fun, but also intelligent. Like I think with friendships, it's always important to meet people with the same goals as you, and like it was just a cohort of women with just like the exact same goals as you, which I loved. And then as Naomi mentioned, I won't go too deep into it, but like 4 weeks of training, sorry, 3 weeks of training with like financial modeling skills. I think for me, what I love the most was like those presentation skills and confidence skills with Kanina, which is the best prof ever, if anyone knows at Ivy. But yeah, that was amazing. And then our last week, we got to do a capstone assignment. And our company was Canadian Tire, and we got to present it to senior executives from Canadian Tire. I think also just other senior executives in the finance world. And I think that was a real culmination of everything that we've learned. And I remember being nervous a bit before it, but it was a really great experience to come to Toronto and kind of present everything. And then our internship was for 3 months. And as I mentioned, I worked at Scotiabank at 1832. I don't know what else to touch on, but it was just a really amazing experience. Like as I mentioned, like the application process isn't that intimidating as you would expect it to be. Like it's really just about your personality. So really encourage everyone to apply. And I would say, like I know we'll touch on this later, but those 4 weeks were like such an amazing part of my life. Just being with such great people and being able to learn in just a safe environment. Like as Naomi mentioned, like you would think that it's like we obviously polish ourselves and we look like we know everything, but like I promise, like our first day, like we did not know anything. And like I remember our first networking event, like we did not know how to network, and then we got so much better throughout. It's just a very safe environment, and it's honestly too good to be true. Like perfect program. You get spoiled, you get lots of food, you get lots of networking events, lots of fun things. I remember we did axe throwing as well for a social, and just build a really great network, learn a lot. And even if like you don't want to do asset management, like I talk to a lot of people now and they reach out to me about the program. Like even if you do the program, you don't want to do asset management after, it literally doesn't matter. Like it's a great internship experience where you learn so much. And like the point of internships is to realize like what you want to do and like if it's for you. I think people put so much pressure on like you have to get a really good internship, like da da da, but it's just a really good stepping stone, I would say, and just nothing to regret about it.
Yeah, wow. Rachel, I did not know all these like intricate parts of the program. I just thought it was kind of a pipeline to an internship, which in itself is really cool, but this is like adult summer camp, or I don't know. Like, I'm so jealous. Invite me to a dinner one day. I'd love to have the 3-course meal. And yeah, Aisha, I love what you said about even if this isn't for you, because like for me, I did 2 sales and training internships. Yeah, I decided I wanted to do tech. So then I worked at a big tech company, but I don't think I could have gotten there without doing my sales and training internships and saying like, I've been in very stressful like situations before where markets are always changing, and I understand tech is changing right now. So, you can trust me that I can learn. And I think that's ultimately what it demonstrates. So any candidates that are looking to apply, don't be afraid. This is not like locking you in a box. If anything, it's just opening more doors, even if it's in a different industry. So we have a few more questions here for you guys. I'm so curious about this one. Why do you think students should be interested in asset management? It is less known than its investment banking, sales and trading, and equity research counterparts. Like I feel like no one ever says, oh, I'm gunning for asset management. I always hear investment banking.
Yeah, so that's a really good question because me included, like all I heard about was banking. Like that's literally the only thing I heard about in Ivy, banking or consulting. Never heard anything about asset management. And they talked about this in the program, or even just people we talked to. Asset management is always seen as like kind of like an end career. Like you kind of grind it out in banking for the first 2 years, and then you want to end up in asset management. But it does, I think things are changing, I would say for sure. Like now there are a lot of internships and rotational programs at like places like McKenzie Investments, like other investment companies that allow you to start in it. And it's honestly crazy to me why it's not as popular, because I would say like it's a lot more, you get a lot more creativity, like not to like diss like banking or S&T or anything like that, but I would say like a lot of those, the tasks that you do in those are a little bit repetitive. And like I would say asset management kind of challenges the creativity side of your brain, because you have to make decisions on like, should you invest in this company, should you not? And it's a really great mix of like qualitative and quantitative. And you get a lot more responsibility, and like you're actually like using your brain when you're doing these things, I would say. And like it's very interesting, like it's very similar to S&T in the sense that you're following the markets, and like if you like to learn something new every day, it's like a really good field, I would say. And it's very results driven, like as you mentioned, like people who were athletes before. I think it's a great thing for you to do, because you get to see like, are you making the return on your investment? Like very results driven and great work life balance. Not like investment banking where you're waking up at 7, you're on call all night. Like all I've heard is that like just really great work life balance, but you're doing such like impactful work, I would say. And like you get to work at like such great companies like Ontario Teachers Pension Fund or like Healthcare Ontario Pension Fund, where you're kind of using your investing skills to kind of provide for like other people like teachers or healthcare workers. So you really get to see like your impact compared to like those other things where you're kind of just like doing things. I don't know. Like I don't know if that makes sense, but like you're able to kind of provide like use those quantitative skills to provide for other people. And I think that me personally, like I find that much more fulfilling, them able to kind of use these skills and do something good for someone else. So it honestly is such a great career. I don't know why it's not talked about more. And you don't have to think of it as just an end goal. You can enter it right away. There's a lot of internships that I've seen in these places and like rotational programs. So would really recommend looking into it.
Yeah, I think Aisha probably touched on that better than I can, if having experience in like both sales and trading and asset management. I think the reason that a lot of people are interested in the counterparts to asset management is because they're very fast paced and they're almost like a little bit more like attractive in that sense. Like I think there's a lot of people who are like, I'm really want to like be a part of that, like go, 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 like always like staying on top of what's going on. Like every time a single piece of news like comes out, they're like jumping on it, whatever. I think people are attracted to that for some reason. I don't get it. I like asset management. I think the thing that there's a lot to like about it, and I think Aisha touched on most of them, but what I really enjoyed is that it was a lot of taking a lot of like opinions into consideration, and then you're kind of like the last, like it depends on how what you want to do with that information that you've been given. And like that's kind of where like the personal aspect comes in. Like when I was working this summer looking at companies, it was a lot of, so first you'd look at like the company's statements and you'd read that and you'd have your first kind of like thought at the company, and you're like, okay, that's kind of like the step one. If you don't think they're a good company after that, then whatever, stop, move on. But then if you're like a little bit more interested, you'd go and maybe listen to like an earnings call or like whatever management calls like every quarter, do that. And then you're like, okay, I'm a little bit more interested in this. And then you like reach out to analysts and you see what their opinions are. You like talk to what different people are thinking about this. And then after that, you do like, I think there's just a lot more of like, it's a very slow process, I think, which I kind of liked about it. Like, I think I like the slow thinking aspect of it, because it's just like it is a nice work-life balance, because it's like, okay, yeah, I'll work my like 8 to 5 and then I'll go home and like think about it for a second and come back tomorrow and like reach out to somebody different. It's a lot more of, I'm not saying it's like there's requires more thinking. I think it's just a different kind of thinking than what people do in investment banking or sales and trading, which is what I think what I really, really enjoyed about it. Yeah, I think that's probably what I like more about it. And yeah, it's just the people that are in it are very interesting to talk to, because it's people who have like clearly thought about everything that's going on and like have come up with this opinion that is like very backed by a lot of different things. And there's also a lot of like debate that can go on. I think I like the debate of like pushing back on somebody's opinion on this part of this company. It's like, so what's good about this company to one person can be completely different to me. So yeah, I liked having that own like kind of personal perspective on it. And it's very results driven too. And you know that it's like your like performance is so tied to that it's like, okay, this I did well, this I did wrong, and like this is how I can change my thinking to do better next time.
I've never done asset management. I have been super interested in it. I think it's definitely different sort of thinking, maybe more critical thinking and more methodical. Sales and trading, I know with internships, it's more like you do the daily reports and like maybe you write a blurb on what, for example, oil did that day. But I guess that's the difference between sell side and buy side. Like sell side, your money comes from commissions and making deals and like, selling securities. Whereas on buy side, like you can have more of a work-life balance. You can like you will have to think more carefully and critically about decisions and news and opinions because you can't just, make decisions like that with your portfolio. In your own words, why is the Ivy Women Asset Management program important to you personally?
Yeah, so love this question because I love to dump on everyone how much I love WAM and like how it changed my life. Like, so love to answer this. I would say like just as I mentioned before, it didn't know how to break into the finance world, didn't have much technical skills, but it taught me from the ground up, which I really appreciated because other jobs they kind of just throw you in the deep end, but this one kind of like you felt like you had support and like you had the resources. And I remember just feeling like I was in such a safe environment. Like the woman didn't feel scared to ask dumb questions, and like I'm someone who's very passionate about female empowerment and addressing like the underrepresentation in the finance world. It was just a really great environment where we really built each other up. Like I remember in our first class with Kanina, which was like a confidence based session, she asked anyone to just stand up and talk about their resume for a minute, and I remember like immediately standing up and talking about it. And then I remember like later when we were working, like other people were like, how did you even do that? And I'm like, I don't know, like I just felt confident. Like it's just like such a good environment and you know it until you're there. And the people you meet, like as I mentioned, like they're some of my best friends. Like you really meet people who are just like you because they have the same goals as you, but they're obviously just very fun and like great people. The networking opportunities that we get are amazing. You get to talk to very, very senior people. I remember in our first event, everyone was so rusty. We didn't know how to network at all. And then I remember Soren, our professor, was like in our last week, he was like, look back at yourself in like your first event. Like you guys are so much better at networking. And I think that as we know, like with recruiting, that's literally the one thing that gets you a job. And like it's so important to know how to network. And I love that they literally gave us like 2 to 3 networking sessions like every week. And like even throughout the summer, we had like lots of different sessions with Brookfield or Omers, like different companies. And I really love those opportunities to be able to talk to these senior people. And as intimidated as I felt at first, like it's very important. It's a really good skill. Got the opportunity to open the stock market, which I love telling people about. But just more personally, as you mentioned, like to make it about you, I remember I was going through a really hard time that summer personally, like had a lot of issues with my mental health. And other than the technical training, just the sessions about like confidence. And like I remember coming out of one of those conference sessions and I felt like my mental health was just healed. Like it was just such a good timing of the program. And that's why it was so great for me personally because females in general, we're not that confident. Like honestly speaking, and like those sessions that we had about confidence, like they really meant a lot to me. And I remember coming out just feel so much more developed as a person. And like that part was just so important to me because I was going through a harder time then. And like I remember Kenya just really making me feel like I was the best person ever, even though I didn't really do much. And like I think that's just so important. And like was really passionate about female empowerment. So it was just such a great program. The professors are amazing. You feel so supported. Like I still talk to the professors now. Remember, I just walked into Steve's room the other day just to talk to him about like what I was going through with like full-time recruiting, for example. It's honestly just great for people to just start off in something, build a good network, and yeah, just build your confidence as a woman and just such great personal development I found throughout of it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think like for me, I think I'm like a confident person. And I think like being in sports growing up, I think that's where I developed like a lot of my confidence. But I think that like when I went to school, I was like, okay, I took my gap year, like I'm a year behind now. Like I haven't been in school for that long. I wasn't really ever like super crazy focused on school. I was always super crazy focused on like sports. So I think I like going into school my first year and then also like a little bit in my second year, I was like, I don't know. I think a lot of like not even just females. I think we all kind of doubt ourselves a lot or a little bit at least in terms of like, I don't know, like am I going to do well on this exam? Like do I sound smart when I'm speaking right now? Like am I really like able to talk about like asset management and all these like accounting? Like I don't know all this stuff, whatever. So I think I've always like had the confidence, but I think there was like a lot of self-doubt being, I don't know, in my first couple of years at Western. And I think not only does like WAM build your confidence, but it brings the confidence out of you. Like I think everybody who's been chosen to participate in Women in Asset Management obviously has a resume that stands out, and like you're obviously a person who's like is committed to like you're probably competitive and high achiever, and you probably have a great resume. But I think that a lot of us struggle with self-doubt for some reason, and I think that WAM like not necessarily did it teach me to be confident, but it gave me the skills that I needed to be like, oh yeah, I am confident and I do know what I'm talking about and I can talk about this. And if I don't know what I'm talking about, it's totally fine, because realistically, nobody else does either. Like if somebody else is like knows something better than I do, great. Why? Like tell me why then. Like tell me, like explain that to me. Like it gave me the confidence to like speak about things, but also just like ask questions. Which is very, very important, because I think something that actually the second cohort or the first cohort like gave as advice to us is like ask a lot of questions in your internships, because they know you don't know what you're talking about. Like if you're not asking questions, then you look like you're like not like actually immersed in your internship. So I think, yeah, like why WAM was important to me is because it brought out my confidence, and the sooner you can do that, like the more like I guess success you'll be able to realize like sooner.
Yeah, and then just very quickly here on a macro scale, why do you think it's important for students, like female students looking to break into this lucrative field? Maybe, we're expanding to different schools now. So this is going to be like a huge, huge change. What do you think this is going to do? Like, I don't know now, but also like a few years down the line, just in terms of broadening the diversity in this field.
Reason that WAM is important is because I think the second you see like I don't know, I think so number one, seeing the first cohort already gave me like a lot of like, oh my gosh, like I can do this. Like that's huge for me. That cohort eventually is going to end up in a like leadership management position at an asset management firm, which like I think having more at the top is the reason. Like I think it's just a never ending cycle, though. It's like the more we can get into this, the more people will be interested in this, and the better talent and better diversity we can bring out into those positions. So I think, yeah, that's the reason that it's so important, is that it's like it's just going to continue to like I don't know. I think there's just going to be exponential returns the bigger it gets and the longer it goes on, and like the bigger the program expands. I don't know how much bigger it can get after you go all around Canada, but I'm sure there's some way it can happen. So yeah, I think that's why it's important to get females into asset management.
Yeah, I really agree with Naomi. Like, I remember being in my first internship at Scotiabank, and like, there obviously was an underrepresentation of women, but like, looking beside me and seeing like six other interns who were women just made me feel like so much more better. And that's what that's like the whole point, is that like, the more women that come in, the more other women will see that there are women in this field, and then they'll be more encouraged to join. And like, honestly, I'm just a huge believer that like, women are just as capable as men. Women have great decision making skills, like we have great attention to detail, which is so important in this field. And I think we have the grit and the hustle to kind of be in a field like this. Like, should be nothing that you're worried about. And I think the more people that come in, the more confidence will be. It's all about just taking that first step, and just like some advice on like kind of being able to feel like you belong in that field. Like, I would really encourage you to just like listen to podcasts and talk to your girls about financial concepts where you feel like more comfortable. And then I'm sure you'll be able to thrive when like guys are talking about stocks, and I'm sure you can like join and be able to join those things. But yeah, I think it's just important to see other people in it, and then it'll encourage more people to join.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think it can be underestimated, the comfort it brings to see other women on the floor. Like I remember when I did tour the RBC asset management floor, and there weren't a lot of women at all. And I just thought, oh, I don't know if this is a space for me. Like in fact, I think there were well, there are like more women on the training floor as well, but like I don't know, being a woman that's confident, I think just being in a space when there are predominantly more men talking finance, it's a very specific like moment of like, oh, I don't know where my confidence went. I just go straight out the window. So seeing, just other women behind your shoulder, it reminds you like, yeah, I can do this too. So love that. Thank you both for sharing your stories, and best of luck with everything. I can tell it's going to go well for you. And I'm sure people can stay in touch with you as well. Like you both have LinkedIn, is that correct? Okay, great. So we can follow your story there. Now I'm going to turn it to Rachel. This is for all of you that are intending to apply for the WAM cohort for summer 2020 4, Rachel will answer more of the specific application questions because we do want to promote this and we do want to make sure that everyone that's interested has a solid chance on getting into the program. So just a few questions here. Rachel, could you briefly provide history on the Ivy WAM program? It is fairly new, correct?
That's correct. So the reason why this whole program came to be is that since 2000, the women in the global fund industry has pretty much stayed the same. So in 23 years, it has stayed at around only 14% of fund managers identifying as women. So that's crazy. And less than that in North America, it is 10% of mutual fund portfolio managers are women. So that works out to about, in Canada, roughly 1 in 4 financial advisors are women, with 1% of money managed being led by female-led funds. So it's crazy. Numbers are way too low. So pre-pandemic, Ivy started the discussions about creating this program for women interested in the field, and to really give the opportunity to females who may not have heard of asset management, because a lot of people haven't, to learn about it and just explore that curiosity, because the field's not just where business-minded people can come from. STEM-related faculties are great. We've had philosophy majors. We've had psychology majors. So it's open to anyone. And so, of course, then the pandemic happened, everything stopped. But we were really lucky that in the fall of 2021, the conversation started up again, and sponsors were like lining up to hop on and fund the program and give the support to Ivy. And so we had our first cohort up and running in May 2022. So super fast turnaround. We had our second cohort go through last year. And so we're really excited. And we're looking forward to seeing the expansion this year for 2024.
Wow, what an amazing turnaround. I didn't know it was so quick. And it's, it is also like logistically, I could see it being a little bit difficult. You got to get the sponsors, you got to get like internships. So that's amazing. Question number 2 then. This year, the Ivy WAM program is open to students across all Canadian universities that identify as women. Why was this decision made?
So we started out with just Western for 2022, and that was just, again, to get our feet wet, to see how the program functioned and go from there. Last year, we went to McGill and we asked McGill students to apply, and we were happy to accept a number of McGill students. That was just to logistically see if we could float it, if the learnings coming from different universities lined up with the level of abilities and everything from our Western students. And so everything went great. And so we know that this program is not going to be solved just by Western students and not just by Ivy. We want to expand to across Canada. It's a it's a worldwide problem, but Canada-wide at this point. And we're excited to have students join us at Western and at Ivy to learn about the industry, to explore their curiosity, and to go out and then take it back to their campuses, their home campuses, throughout the rest of their undergrad, and talk about it and get other people excited about the asset management industry.
Yeah, I didn't even think of the exponential returns of someone coming back to their campus. And even if they don't go through WAM, maybe they're not women, but just having an upper year that can tell you about their asset management internship is huge. I don't think I had anyone that I could speak to about asset management at McMaster. So if there's just one person, it can really make a big difference. Okay, that's awesome. Now, could you share the application and recruitment process for this year's cohort for summer 2024? Have things changed since Naomi's year?
So there's been a few changes. So just sort of some high-level dates and information thrown at you right now. So our applications are opening on November 6th. So it's coming up fast and furious. And then throughout November and December, we will be hosting a number of virtual or in-person at Western information sessions that we encourage you to register for on the WAM website. Applications will close on January 4th. So you have a long time to think about whether you're going to apply, get it done right away, wait until the last minute, whatever your style is. It's a great period of time. this is where the change is. The application itself remains the same. So it is the 2 essay questions, it's 2 reference letters, it's your transcript, your resume, those sorts of things, the 1-minute video that Aisha talked about. But in addition to that, we are adding another level this year. So at the beginning of February, we will be putting together a short list of candidates that we'd like to potentially move forward with. And on February 6th and 7th, we will be conducting short 5 to 10 minute virtual interviews just to solidify the selection of which students will be joining the cohort this year. So we will be sending those out start of February to let you know if you're successful in those to go into that interview round. And then acceptances will come out mid-February, with our pre-program weekend being mid-March. And then the program starting on May 1st, and then internships June 3rd until the end of August.
I got goosebumps. That's so exciting. Okay, I'm really jealous. But yes, I'm so excited for my McMaster friends to hop on this one, and everybody else. This is a great opportunity. Do not miss out. Now, how are students in the program matched with employers for the summer 2024 internship term? There was a survey in the prior years. Is it the same? Do you have any advice for this process?
So we get the job descriptions and as much information from each of the employers. They fill out a internship matching questionnaire, and we get all of their information ahead of time. And then once we have the cohort solidified and we know where these students are coming from, their interest based on their applications, we then also send out an internship matching questionnaire to the students. And this goes into a little bit more depth about what do you get excited about, and what areas of life bring you excitement. So do you have a healthcare experience? Do you have family members that have had issues in healthcare before, and so you have a little bit more of a passion or a connection to that industry? Do you have a passion for real estate? Do you have a parent that's in real estate? Is that something that you've been interested in? Those sorts of things. And then also geographically. So as I believe it was Naomi mentioned, we have internship placements available in Victoria, British Columbia, Edmonton, Alberta, Toronto, and then Montreal. And so we do take into consideration where you're interested in being, whether you're coming from a school on the West Coast, so you'd like to stay out West Coast, whether you're from the East Coast and you'd like to be closer to home. Though we take that into consideration. With the majority of our internships being in Toronto, we do tend to have enough people in the periphery that want to go to other places, but we do understand that the majority of people want Toronto. So it's just about a bunch of cross-referencing. It's a big process. We look at technical skills coming into the program. We look at how people, what courses they've selected prior to the program to see if there is some additional interest, if you've done some coding, those sorts of things, just based on what the employers are looking for as well.
And how can students stand out in their applications and interviews? We did get some advice from Aisha and Naomi, but maybe from, the program manager's point of view.
That's great. So we really encourage you just to show your genuine curiosity. It's okay if you don't know anything about asset management, but tell us that and tell us why you're interested in learning about it. Also, show us your leadership and just show us your passion for doing things. So leadership can come from traditional aspects like clubs that you've been an executive in. It can come from just being and putting yourself out there for those clubs. It can also come from non-traditional areas. If you weren't able to, in high school, you weren't able to join clubs because, hey, there's this thing called the pandemic. Show us ways that you were able to pursue some leadership. Were you providing care for a family member when parents had to go out? What were you doing to help your family during the pandemic? Those sorts of things would be great as well to show us leadership, but just really show us who you are, your passions, your curiosity, and just have fun with it.
Now, how many students are you looking to take from each school? Is the cohort growing in size from this year as opposed to last?
So we're excited. I don't know if we've actually said this, but as this program is completely tuition free. So there is no cost to students coming into this program. So I don't think either of the ladies shared that. Brescia, your residence is covered for the month of May. Food is covered Monday to Friday for the month of May. The classes are all covered for the month of May. The only thing you have to really take care of is your accommodations during your internship. And so that's why we do take into consideration geographical locations. But it's all provided by sponsorship funding. And so the more sponsors we have involved, the more students we're able to take. And we only take the number of students that we have internship placements for. And so the first year we had 33 internship placements. So in Aisha's year, we had 33 students. Naomi's, we had 41. We were able to grow. And this year, at this moment in time, we have 47 internship placements available, and we are still working out some final sponsorship agreements. So we are possibly going ahead above 47. But from each school, who knows? We're not putting into place any strict criteria that we have to take X number from X school. We are going to see what the candidate pool is like and really take who we feel would best fit into this program.
Last question for you, Rachel. Are there any success stories from alumni that are memorable to you? Have some alumni continued to work in asset management after completing the program and perhaps as they are graduating?
So I'd say the biggest success story, and we saw it in both years, was from day one when they came in on May 1st. The way that, and then to May 31st. So that first day in class to the capstone presentations, the financial fluency, it was like they were speaking a new language, the students, and the ease in which they were able to address the panel of like adjudicators for the capstone projects and answer their questions was phenomenal. So as both of the ladies said, the confidence maybe not so strong at the first day and not necessarily sure what they were getting themselves into, but everyone on that last day during those presentations, they were spot on. They knew exactly what to say. They knew what they were talking about, how to answer questions, and that sort of thing. So that was really amazing to see both years. But on the job front, it was really cool to see from Aisha's year, the first cohort, how many students were able to secure positions in asset management. We had a few students that were in other finance areas, but the majority of students went back to an asset management role, whether it was at the same firm they internshipped during WAM, or if it was they used those networking opportunities with other sponsor firms to secure a job for the next summer. So it was awesome to see how much like cross-pollination sort of that there was between sponsor firms. And then now with Aisha's year, potentially students graduating from Ivy or from Western, I remember having the first student that came up to myself and was like, I got my job. She has already secured, there's a number of them, but I can remember the first student to come up to tell me that they had secured their full-time employment in an asset management position. And it was really cool to see, like, it was awesome. And then also there was one student from the first cohort who was in health science and really had no idea about asset management at all or business in general. And last year they went to a different firm for an asset management internship, and then ultimately went on and is now going to be completing their master's in applied management of applied health science. And so they're going and veering and using their health science background in a business sense. So it's really awesome. We've changed the career trajectories of a number of students and hope to continue doing so.
Yeah, seriously, change the career trajectory. It doesn't mean you got to stay on asset management path, but like this program has the ability to change the entire early career outlook for you. And that's why, once again, I said this a bajillion times, but please apply, everybody. This is an amazing program. I've been a fangirl. If you've been a fan of me, you better be a fan of this program because I love everything about it. Okay, I have two more questions for everybody. Is there anything else you'd like to share about your experience with Ivy WAM program or Rachel, the program itself? Anything we missed out that you want the viewers to know?
I think like those who are reaching out to me and like trying to figure out whether they want to apply or not for it, I think the number one thing I say is like the worst thing that happens is you like either you don't get accepted or you get accepted, and if you don't want to do it, don't do it, but do it. Like it is like genuinely there's no harm in applying, and like there's no harm in like going to every like session that we're going to be putting on and to try and promote the program, but there's nothing to lose. Like, I think if you're scared about like going into a program with a lot of like everything's valid. Like, I had the exact same reservations. It's like, if you're scared about going into something and not knowing anybody and thinking you have less financial literacy than everybody, you probably don't. Like, you're all on the same like level playing field. If you're scared about going into an internship in a place where they're all like expecting you to know everything, they don't expect you to know everything, and they like are there to help you learn. And the most, I think, a lot of like speaking with other girls, especially, like I know from firsthand experience, it's everybody's just there to help you learn. Like, the sponsors are sponsoring this program for a reason. They're sponsoring it because they want to help teach the next generation of asset managers. They're not sponsoring it because they're expecting like these crazy like these people who have been learning about finance since they were 10 years old. Like, that's, you're okay. You're not the person that they're looking for. They're looking for somebody who's curious about learning and is passionate about learning and is like open to asking questions and is yeah, just passionate about the program. So yeah, don't be nervous. If you are, reach out to me, please. Yeah, like, look me up on LinkedIn, reach out to me, because I love advocating for this program and I would love to chat with anybody who wants advice in anything.
I would just echo what Naomi said. Like, even if like there's no harm in applying, like literally you're losing nothing. Even if you don't get in, you don't get in. You went through the application process, but like as I mentioned before, I love to tell people this when like they chat to me about this program. Like, even if it's not something you want to do after, like you gain such good transferable skills. Like, why would you not want to be in a program that teaches you how to be more confident in being a woman and like teaches you different transferable skills? Like, so you don't want to do asset management, like you gain some technical skills you can apply to other places, and like you got to work in an internship, you got to meet new people, like got to make so many good friends. But there's literally no harm in applying. And as Naomi mentioned, like, please reach out to me. I love chatting about the program and like giving advice. And I would say I'm a very genuine person. Like, I'm not going to lie to you about anything, but didn't miss anything. But just apply. You're not going to lose anything in it. You gain a lot of skills, develop as a person, as I mentioned, like gain so much confidence, which why would you not want to do that? So yeah.
And I think just the one last thing I'd like to add is it really goes off of what Naomi and Aisha just said. The 70 odd students that we've had go through this program now, everyone would be willing to have someone reach out to them. They are extremely happy to help educate about this program and are super advocates for this program. And we can't wait for them to get out into the full-time workplace to fill that pipeline of potential future finance gurus out there. And so we're excited to have them be representatives and ambassadors of the program, and everyone would be willing to talk to you through the internship, through the application, any aspect of the program.
Yeah, just reach out if you want to know what it's like just talk to someone who's done it. And yeah, you have to also remember, like, the cohort, they're in this program that's training like women to be more confident and to break into an industry that is just like so underrepresented. So if you're a woman reaching out, like, they're going to help you. This is a good group of like very smart female students, so please do so. Now, just last question here, where can students find the application to the program? I'll have every link below, but maybe Rachel, could you describe what we're going to have below just so people know?
So the application is located on our website. So it is ivy.uwo.ca/WAM, WAM. It will be active and live as of 8 a.m. on November 6th. So please go and click that link.
And apply. Once again, reach out to anyone here or alumni that you find on LinkedIn. Very excited. And you can also drop a comment here, message me if you have any questions about it. Happy to connect you. But thank you so much for joining me. This is so fun, and I'm so excited to see the success of the program and every individual that goes through it. So yeah, until next week's episode, good luck everybody on your applications, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.